You can't just leave me for her, Stephen. Isabella's voice echoed through the grand marble lobby. He smiled ruefully, holding the hand of his new bride, Donna. My heart pounded like a drum. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My fiancé of 3 years, Stephen Anderson, was standing in the middle of an exquisite wedding ceremony, but he wasn't waiting for me. He was with her, Donna. I took a step forward, my heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. Stephen, what is going on here? My voice trembled, a mix of anger and pain. Stephen looked at me, the corner of his mouth curling into a smug grin. Funny seeing you here, Isabella? Funny? You think this is funny? My voice rose, drawing the attention of the guests. You're marrying her, using the money we saved together for our future, for this. Donna looked at him, confusion shadowing her eyes. Stephen, is she telling the truth? Stephen sighed, pulling his hand away from her grip. Yes, Donna, it's true. Isabella and I were engaged, but she was never exciting enough. I felt like the ground had crumbled beneath me. Exciting enough? Is that why you stole from me? To fund this sham of a wedding? He shrugged, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Yes, Isabella, your savings made this dream possible. My blood boiled. You're a monster, Stephen. The crowd started murmuring, growing louder as people pieced together the betrayal. I could see the scandalous headlines already forming in their minds. Donna's shock turned into rage. You used her money for our wedding? How could you do that to me? Stephen turned to her, a forced calm in his voice. Donna, listen. No, Stephen, I interrupted. You're not talking your way out of this one. Both of you deserve to know the truth. He's been playing us, Donna. Donna's face crumpled, and she stepped back, her eyes never leaving Stephen. Is this all true? Have you been lying to me? He tried to take her hand again, but she slapped it away. Don't touch me. I looked around, meeting the eyes of everyone in the room. I will make you regret this, Stephen. With a final glance at the chaos behind me, I turned on my heel and walked out of the grand lobby. Each step away from Stephen and Donna solidified my resolve. I was done being the quiet, naive fiancé. The betrayal fueled something fierce within me. Layla, my best friend and lawyer, picked me up from the hotel. Are you all right, Isabella? Her concern was evident, but she knew my answer. I'm not okay, Layla, but I will be. We're going to make them pay. Her eyes sparkled with determination. What do you plan to do? I clasped my hands tightly in my lap, taking a deep breath. We need to gather evidence. We need everything on Stephen's betrayal, and then we take him down. Isabella, that's going to be hard? Are you sure about this? I nodded. More than ever. He didn't just betray my trust, he used me, my dreams, my savings. Layla's expression hardened. All right, let's get to work. We'll need everything he's done, every lie, every theft. I looked out the window, the city lights blending into a blur. He won't know what hit him. Layla nodded. We'll make sure of that. As we drove away from the scene of ultimate betrayal, I knew one thing for sure. Stephen had made the biggest mistake of his life, and I was going to make sure he paid for every single moment of pain he had caused me. The sun dipped below the horizon as Layla and I settled into a corner booth at our favorite cafe. She opened her laptop, ready to document everything. Start from the beginning, Isabella, she said. How did you meet Stephen? I took a sip of my coffee, gathering my thoughts. It was a business meeting. I was new at the firm, trying not to draw attention to myself. Stephen was the project lead, confident, charming. He made it all look effortless. Layla typed, nodding for me to continue. He saw me struggling with some papers and offered his help. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot at the time. We started talking. He was always so engaging. It felt like he drew me out of my shell. Layla glanced up. Was he always manipulative? I shook my head. Not obviously. He knew how to hide it well. There were signs, though, small things that felt off. I remember the first time he snapped at me. Her fingers paused over the keys. What happened? He had promised he'd be at my friend's birthday. He didn't show up. When I confronted him, he turned it around, said I was being clingy, that he had important work commitments. Layla's brows furrowed. Work commitments? Yes, but I found out later he was at a bar with some friends. I brushed it off at the time, thinking maybe I was overreacting. He was always so convincing. He sounds like a textbook manipulator, charm when he needs it, cruelty when it benefits him. Exactly. There were good times, too. He made grand gestures, like that trip to the lake. He planned everything, made me feel special. Layla's frown deepened. But that was his trick, right? Lure you back in after pushing you away? Yes, I admitted, feeling a bitter taste in my mouth. Looking back, I see the pattern, but at the time I was blinded by love, or what I thought was love. And then the engagement. He proposed during a weekend getaway. He was so romantic. Candlelit dinner, fat rose petals. I thought it was genuine. Little did I know, he was planning our future with my money. Layla's eyes narrowed. When did you start putting money away with him? Right after we got engaged. He said he wanted to build a life together, and part of that was financial security. I trusted him, so I agreed. And he kept pushing the wedding plans, right? She asked, confirming what she already knew. Yes. Every time I asked about setting a date, he had an excuse. Work deadlines, family issues. I thought he wanted it to be perfect. Now I see he was stalling. While planning his wedding with Donna, Layla added, anger evident in her voice. Exactly. He played me for a fool. Layla leaned back, closing her laptop. We need evidence. Emails, messages, anything that shows his deceit. I nodded, resolute. I'll gather everything. He left traces. He got careless, thinking I wouldn't notice. We'll need to be thorough, Isabella. This has to be airtight. I know, I said, determination burning inside me. I won't let him get away with this. As we left the cafe, I made a silent vow. Stephen's charm had lured me in, but his lies had unleashed my fury. He would face the consequences of every deceitful act. Stephen's engagement party was the first time I felt completely out of place. His friends were loud, boisterous, like they owned the world. I nursed my drink, trying to find comfort in the corner of the room. Isn't Isabella too straight-laced for you, Stephen? One of his friends sneered, a tall man with an arrogant smirk. Stephen laughed, glancing over at me. She's perfect, he said, but his eyes flickered toward his phone, which buzzed incessantly all night. That was Stephen, always presenting one face to the world, another to those closest to him. I should have noticed the signs then, his constant need to check his phone, the smirk he couldn't quite hide when he thought I wasn't looking. But I wanted so badly to believe him. Later that night, as the party wound down, Stephen pulled me aside, his face serious. Isabella, I'm sorry about my friends. They can be jerks sometimes. I forced a smile. It's fine. I just wish you wouldn't get so distracted. He frowned, slipping his phone into his pocket. I promise, I'm here with you. Let's make tonight about us. But the promises always fizzled. He had a knack for saying what I needed to hear, only to revert to his old ways once my guard was down. Months passed, and our engagement became a cycle of highs and lows. Expensive dinners and spontaneous weekend getaways kept me hooked, overshadowing the doubts that crept in during his frequent business trips and late-night absences. One night, I confronted him as he was getting ready to leave. Why are you always out so late? Business, Isabella, he replied coldly, adjusting his tie. Don't be so paranoid. It's not paranoia when it's happening so often, I insisted, blocking his way. He sighed, annoyed. Look, I have big deals in the works. It can't be helped. You knew my job came with long hours, but you never explain anything. It's like there's this whole part of your life I'm not allowed to see. His expression hardened. I'm doing this for us, for our future. Do you understand that? I stepped back, feeling the familiar sting of his barbed words. I just want to feel like I'm part of your life too, Stephen. You are, but you have to trust me. He kissed my forehead, a gesture that used to comfort me but now felt condescending. Those kisses, those empty assurances, they were what kept me hoping, kept me trying. Until the night of our dream wedding shattered everything. After I saw him with Donna, the full weight of his deceit crushed me. All those moments of doubt now made sense. Stephen had used me, played me. The anger simmered beneath my skin, fueling my resolve. Sitting in Layla's office later that week, I handed over a stack of documents. These are emails, text messages, everything that felt off to me. Layla skimmed through them, her brow furrowing. This is good, Isabella, but we need more. Bank statements, any financial records showing the transfers. We need to create a clear trail. I'll get them, I said firmly. I won't stop until I have everything. Layla nodded, determination matching my own. We're going to take him down. Every step I took now had a purpose. Stephen had thought he could use me and walk away unscathed. He was dead wrong. I was going to expose every lie, every manipulation. He would regret underestimating me. The game was on, and I was ready to play. I watched as Stephen became increasingly distant. It started with him coming home late, always muttering something about a client meeting running over or a sudden work emergency. At first, I believed him, or at least wanted to. One evening I couldn't ignore it any longer. He came in at midnight, reeking of alcohol. I stood in the hallway, my arms crossed. "Where have you been, Stephen?" "Out with clients," he slurred, attempting to brush past me. "At a bar, I assume?" I shot back, not moving. "Isabella, don't start. I'm tired," he said coldly, heading for the bedroom. "Stephen, this is getting out of hand. You're hardly here anymore. We don't talk." "I don't see you. We talk," he snapped, turning to face me. "You just choose to focus on the negative." "Negative? You're never home, and when you are, you're in another world," I said, feeling my frustration bubble over. His face twisted in annoyance. "I'm working hard for our future. Why can't you see that?" "Stop hiding behind that excuse," I shouted. "Is there someone else, Stephen?" The room fell silent. For a moment I thought I saw something like guilt flash across his face, but it was gone before I could be sure. "That's ridiculous," he said, his voice icy. "I'm dedicated to us." I stared at him, feeling helpless. "Then act like it." Weeks went by and the nights grew colder, not just outside but between us. Stephen's absences became more frequent, his explanations more vague. One night, after he had left yet again claiming a business emergency, I sat on the couch with my laptop. I decided to dig deeper. It took some time, but eventually I stumbled upon his email account. As I read through his messages, a bitter taste filled my mouth. There they were. Dozens of emails between Stephen and Dee, discussing their secret project, their future together. It all clicked. Donna wasn't just some fling. She was a full-scale replacement. I printed everything, feeling my chest tighten with each page. When he came back later that night, I was ready. My hands trembled, but I squared my shoulders and waited. "Isabella, awake?" he called casually, nearly making me snap. "In the living room," I replied evenly. He sauntered in, then froze, noticing the papers spread out on the coffee table. "What's this?" "Your emails with Donna," I said, my voice steady despite my trembling fingers. "I know everything." His face transformed. Gone was the casual facade, replaced by a flicker of fear. "Isabella, I can explain." "Explain? You've been planning a life with another woman while stringing me along." I pointed at the emails. "Your late nights, your business meetings, they were all lies." He took a step toward me, but I held up my hand. "Don't. Just don't." His eyes darkened. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "Am I? Tell me, Stephen, what's your idea of proportion? Using my savings to fund your wedding with her?" He looked like he was about to argue, but then he laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You were always so gullible, Isabella. You didn't see it coming, did you?" My chest tightened. "No, I didn't. But I see it now and I'm done. You're going to pay for this, Stephen." Walking away from him, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. He had shown his true colors, and there was no going back. With every step into our shared apartment, I knew I was moving towards uncovering every layer of his deceit. The end of our engagement would be just the beginning of his downfall. The tip came through an anonymous text message. "Luxury hotel, Saturday at noon. You need to see this." I stared at my phone, my curiosity piqued and my suspicions raging. I needed to find out what Stephen was hiding. On Saturday, I dressed carefully, trying to look composed, despite the turmoil inside me. The hotel lobby was grand, filled with fresh flowers and the murmur of guests. I saw the sign for the wedding reception and followed the arrows. My heart pounded harder with each step. Finally, I stepped into the ballroom. There at the altar was Stephen in a tuxedo, Donna by his side in a white gown. The world seemed to tilt. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, but his words drowned in the rushing sound in my ears. I forced my legs to move, walking purposefully down the aisle. "Stop." My voice cut through the ceremony, turning heads. Stephen's eyes widened as he saw me, a flash of panic crossing his face. Donna looked confused, glancing between me and Stephen. "What is this?" I demanded. "How could you do this to me?" Stephen's face twisted into a sneer. "Isabella, you shouldn't be here." "But I am," I replied, my voice shaking with fury, "and I see now exactly what you are." "Stephen, what's going on?" Donna asked, her voice trembling. "Tell her, Stephen," I challenged. "Tell her how you used my savings for this sham of a wedding." Donna's face crumpled, shock giving way to understanding. "Is that true? Did you use her money for this?" Stephen rolled his eyes, his mask slipping to reveal the callous man beneath. Yes, it's true. I used her money because she was never exciting enough. The guests gasped, whispers sweeping through the room. I took a deep breath, my rage fierce and burning. You think you can just walk away from this? Stephen smirked. I can and I will. What are you going to do about it? You'll see, I said, my voice cold. Everyone here will know what you did. Stephen turned to his stunned bride. Donna, don't listen to her. She's trying to sabotage us. But Donna's face had turned cold. Get away from me, Stephen. You lied to me. I stepped closer, my eyes never leaving Stephen's. You played both of us, but you won't get away with it. As security moved to escort me out, I turned to the crowd, raising my voice. This man is a liar and a thief. He used me, and he'll use anyone to get what he wants. I was led out of the hotel, but I didn't care. The seed was planted. Stephen's perfect world was crumbling around him. On my way out, I sent a quick text to Layla. I need everything we have on Stephen. Now. Back in Layla's office, we reviewed every piece of evidence again. We're taking this public, and we're going to make sure everyone knows, I said. Layla nodded, sliding a folder across the table. This is more than enough. He's not going to walk away clean. As we finalized our plans, I felt a sense of clarity and resolve. Stephen's betrayal had broken something inside me, but it had also forged something stronger. He thought he could dismiss me, but he was wrong. I would be the storm that tore down his carefully crafted facade, and I would make sure he felt every moment of it. Stephen had no idea I had been recording our conversation. When I confronted him at home, I made sure my phone was hidden but capturing everything. Your savings made this dream possible, he sneered, his words dripping with arrogance. This recording would be my weapon. Layla uploaded the file to her computer. This is perfect, Isabella. He's admitting everything. I sank into the chair, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. What now? Layla tapped away on her keyboard, bringing up her contacts. First, we alert the media, local news, social media influencers. We need to ensure maximum exposure. Then, we file a lawsuit. My eyes locked onto hers, my resolve steeling. Let's do it. The next day, I walked into Layla's office to find her already bustling with activity. I've got a reporter from the local news station interested, she said, looking up from her desk. And I contacted a few social media influencers who love a good scandal. Great, I replied, settling into the seat across from her desk. We need to make sure this hits him where it hurts. That evening, we posted the recording online, tagging Stephen's workplace and everyone relevant in his social circle. Within minutes, the post began to spread like wildfire. The following morning, Stephen burst into my office at work, his face red with anger. What the hell did you do, Isabella? I stood up, meeting his glare head-on. I exposed you. People deserve to know what kind of person you really are. You think you can ruin me? He spat, stepping closer. You'll regret this. I held my ground. No, Stephen, you'll regret this. You used me, you betrayed me, and now the world knows. As security escorted him out, Greg, a supportive coworker, approached me. You all right? I nodded, taking a deep breath. I will be. That night, Layla and I watched as the news station aired the story. Footage of Stephen's confession played, followed by my account of our relationship and his betrayal. It was surreal watching my life unfold on screen. He'll face consequences now, Layla said, squeezing my hand. This is just the beginning. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Stephen's face was plastered everywhere, his reputation slowly crumbling. He was suspended from his job pending an investigation, and Donna publicly filed for an annulment. One afternoon, I received a call from a reporter wanting to do an in-depth interview. Sitting down with them, I reiterated my story, making sure every detail of Stephen's deceit was highlighted. Do you feel justice has been served? The reporter asked. Not yet, I said firmly. There's more to do. I continued meeting with Layla, collecting more evidence and planning the legal side of things. We need to file a suit for emotional damages and theft, Layla explained. We can also go after him for fraud. I nodded, determined. Let's get everything we can. As we filed the lawsuit, the weight of my decision hit me. This fight wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity. Stephen thought he could use and discard me, but he underestimated my resolve. Back at home, I received a call from my parents. You've always been strong, Isabella. We're proud of you, my dad said, his voice filled with warmth. Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done this without you and Mom. Remember, Mom chimed in, this is just a chapter in your life. You have many more to write. As I hung up, I felt a sense of closure. Stephen's actions had sparked a fire in me, one that wouldn't burn out anytime soon. This battle might be far from over, but I was ready to face whatever came next. My fight for justice was just beginning. The high-profile event was buzzing with energy. Every influential person in the city seemed to be there, and so was Stephen. I spotted him across the room, mingling and laughing, still playing the charming role he perfected over the years. Layla squeezed my arm. Ready? More than ever, I replied, clutching a small, portable speaker in my other hand. We moved to the center of the ballroom, taking deep breaths. I raised my voice, making it clear and forceful. Excuse me, everyone. May I have your attention? The room fell silent as people turned to look at us. Stephen's smile froze, his eyes narrowing as he recognized me. What is she doing here? Someone murmured. I have something to share, I continued, my voice unwavering. I lifted the speaker and hit play. Stephen's recorded confession echoed through the room. Your savings made this dream possible, his voice sneered. Gasps filled the air, followed by whispers and shocked glances. I watched as Stephen's face turned from pale to an angry red. Everyone, witness the man who used his fiancée's savings for another wedding, I announced, my voice cutting through the stunned silence. Stephen stormed towards me, eyes blazing. What do you think you're doing, Isabella? Showing everyone who you really are, I retorted, meeting his gaze without flinching. You think you can manipulate people, ruin lives, and walk away? Not anymore. Donna, who had been standing off to the side, approached us, her face ashen. Isabella, is this true? Did he really use your money? I nodded. Every word of it. He never intended to marry me. It was all a lie. The crowd started to murmur again, louder this time. Stephen tried to grab my arm, but Layla stepped in, blocking him. Don't you dare, she warned. You have no right to do this, Stephen shouted. I have every right, I snapped back. You deceived me. You took everything. Now everyone knows. Donna turned to Stephen, tears streaming down her face. I trusted you. How could you do this? Stephen's face twisted in anger and desperation. It wasn't like that, Donna. She's distorting the truth. Am I? I asked, holding up the phone, still playing his confession. You admitted it yourself. The room watched as Donna shook her head, stepping back from Stephen. I can't believe I was so blind. Stephen looked around, realizing the tide had turned against him. His composed facade shattered. You'll regret this, he hissed, his voice low and threatening. Enough with the threats, Stephen, I replied coldly. Your true colors are plain for everyone to see. A security guard approached, and at Layla's nod, he escorted Stephen out, who continued to rage and curse as he was led away. The crowd began to disperse, people still whispering and throwing curious looks my way. Layla turned to me, her eyes full of pride. You did it, Isabella. You exposed him. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and relief. We did it. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was swift. Stephen lost his job and faced public disgrace. Donna went through with the annulment, and Layla pursued the legal action against him. The digital evidence we had collected, emails, bank transfers, and the recorded confession, painted a clear picture of his deceit. One evening, as I was sorting through some old photos, I received a text from Layla. We're winning. His attempts to countersue have been dismissed. I smiled, a real smile, for the first time in what felt like forever. Revenge had never been my goal. Justice was. And now, with each passing day, it felt like I was reclaiming my life, piece by piece. I met with my parents for dinner. As I walked in, my father wrapped me in a warm hug. You always had the strength, Isabella. We're proud of you. Thanks, Dad. I have a long way to go, but I'm getting there. We're here for you always, Mom added, her smile comforting. As we sat down to eat, I looked around at the faces of my family. For the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. This chapter of my life was closing, but a new one was beginning. And this time, I was the one writing it. The courtroom was tense as we waited for the verdict. Stephen sat a few rows away, his expression a mix of anger and defeat. My heart pounded, but I kept my composure, glancing at Layla for reassurance. The judge returned, and everyone rose. In the matter of Isabella Hart versus Stephen Anderson, the court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Isabella Hart. Mr. Anderson is hereby ordered to repay the stolen funds and compensate for emotional damages. A wave of relief washed over me as the judge continued, detailing the legal requirements Stephen would face. I glanced at him and saw his face turn ghostly pale. After the session, Stephen approached me in the hallway, his lawyer trailing behind. "Isabella, please. Can we talk?" I shook my head. "There's nothing left to say, Stephen." He looked desperate. "I didn't mean for things to go this far. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix what you did," I replied, my voice steady. "You made your choices. Now you face the consequences." With that, I turned and walked away, feeling a weight lifting from my shoulders. Layla joined me, her eyes sparkling with triumph. "We did it, Isabella. Justice is served." "Thank you, Layla. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have," she said with a smile, "but I'm glad I could help." The weeks following the trial brought a sense of closure. Stephen struggled to find work, his reputation in ruins. Donna quietly left town, seeking a fresh start away from the scandal. I spent more time with my parents, drawing strength from their unwavering support. One evening, over dinner, my dad looked at me with pride. "Isabella, you've come a long way. How are you feeling?" "I feel free," I admitted, smiling. "It's like a new chapter is beginning." "That's the spirit," Mom chimed in. "You've got the whole world ahead of you." Back at work, my colleagues treated me with newfound respect. Greg, who had always been a silent supporter, approached me one afternoon. "Hey, Isabella, I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee sometime. Just as friends, of course." A genuine smile spread across my face. "I'd like that, Greg. Thank you." As we sipped our coffees, Greg shared his own experiences of overcoming challenges, and I found comfort in knowing that I wasn't alone. "You're stronger than you think," he said, his eyes full of warmth. "Thank you, Greg. That means a lot." My days became brighter, filled with new possibilities and a renewed sense of purpose. I decided to focus on my career, setting new goals and aspirations. The lessons I had learned from Stephen's betrayal became a source of strength, reminding me of my resilience. One day, Layla called with exciting news. "Isabella, there's a job opening in my firm. It's a prestigious position, and I think you'd be perfect for it." "Really? That's amazing," I replied, feeling a surge of excitement. "I'll send over my application right away." "You've got this," she said with confidence. "I believe in you." As I clicked send on my application, I felt a sense of accomplishment. Stephen's betrayal had tested me, but it had also made me stronger. Now I was ready to embrace new opportunities and build a future on my terms. Standing by the window, I looked out at the city lights, feeling a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and a new dawn was breaking. With my past behind me and new horizons ahead, I knew that I was ready to face whatever came next. The journey had been tough, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to reclaim my life. The future was mine, and I was determined to make every moment count. "I'll be staying here from now on. Get used to it." I nearly dropped my purse. Lorraine's voice cut through the air like a bad joke fallen flat. "What? Since when?" Kevin stood to the side, shifting on his feet, avoiding my eyes. He tried to muster a weak smile. "Mom needed a place, Elena. She'll stay with us for a while." I could feel my blood boiling. "A place? Kevin, we didn't discuss this." Lorraine rolled her eyes, a smirk flickering across her face. "There's no need to raise your voice. It's family business." I glanced at Kevin, searching for some sign of solidarity. He simply shrugged, looking anywhere but at me. "She doesn't have anywhere else to go," he muttered. Anger rose in my chest. "So you just decide this without asking me?" Kevin sighed, walking past me to grab a can of soda from the kitchen. "Look, let's not make this a huge deal, okay? It's temporary." Lorraine settled herself on the couch, flipping through a magazine like she owned the place. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to scream. "Temporary? And how long is temporary exactly?" Kevin opened the soda, taking a sip. "We'll figure it out. She's family, Elena." I turned away, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. Nothing about this felt right. The house I had worked so hard to make our home was now invaded without a second thought. I glanced back at Kevin, hoping for a glimmer of understanding. "Kevin, I need to talk to you, alone." He finally looked at me, his face a mix of annoyance and fatigue. "Fine," he said, putting down his drink. "Let's talk." We walked to the backyard, where the evening air did little to cool my anger. "You can't just bring her here without any discussion," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Kevin rubbed the back of his neck. "Elena, it's not that simple. She's my mother." I didn't want to sound heartless, but I felt cornered. I understand, but this is our home too. We're supposed to make these decisions together. He gave me a tired look. I thought you'd understand. The sting of those words cut deep. Kevin, that's not fair. I'm trying to understand, but you can't expect me to accept this without talking about it. He shrugged again, as if that single gesture could dissolve my frustration. Look, just give it time. She won't be a problem. I glared at him, unable to fathom his nonchalance. Won't be a problem. She's already taken over the living room. Kevin threw his hands up in surrender. I can't throw her out, Elena. That's all I'm saying. With that, he walked back inside, leaving me fuming in the backyard. The sinking realization dawned on me. My voice didn't matter. Kevin had made up his mind, and Lorraine had dug her heels in. As I stood there, I took a deep breath, my determination solidifying. I would not let this go uncontested. Stepping back inside, I shot a glare at Lorraine. She met my eyes with a cold smile. This is not over, I whispered, mainly to myself. The house, my sanctuary, had become a battleground, and the war had just begun. I can't believe this is happening, I muttered to myself as I left for work the next morning. My best friend Sandra called just as I pulled into the parking lot. Elena, how was your trip? She asked cheerfully. It was fine, but I came back to a nightmare. What do you mean? Her voice grew serious. Kevin's mom moved in, just like that. No discussion, no warning, I said, biting back my frustration. Sandra sighed. You've got to be kidding me. Didn't he even talk to you about it? Nope, it was all decided while I was gone. Sandra was quiet for a moment. You need to lay down some boundaries, Elena. This isn't okay. I know, I said, parking the car and grabbing my bag. It's just complicated. I get it. Just remember, you don't have to put up with this forever, she said, trying to reassure me. Entering the office, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back home. Memories flooded in about when Kevin and I first met at this very office. Kevin, the charming graphic designer, always had a way of making everyone laugh. Our romance had been quick and intense. We married after just a year of dating, certain we could handle anything together. Then Lorraine revealed her true colors. Sweet and supportive before the wedding, she turned critical and manipulative once the rings were on our fingers. Kevin, forever the peacemaker, never stood up to her. I'll never forget the first time she openly disapproved of me. Are you sure you can handle Kevin's work hours, Elena? Maybe you should rethink this career of yours, she said, smirking as if she was genuinely concerned. Of course, Kevin and I manage just fine, I had replied, masking my irritation. Kevin had shrugged the comment off, claiming she meant no harm, but the seeds of doubt she planted grew each day. Returning home that evening, I found Lorraine rearranging the kitchen. What are you doing? I couldn't hide my annoyance. Just making it more practical. You had it all wrong, she replied nonchalantly. I clenched my jaw, taking a deep breath. I like it the way it is. Lorraine's voice dripped with false sweetness. Oh, sweetie, you'll see it's better this way. Stepping into the living room, I saw Kevin on his laptop. Kevin, we need to talk, now. He looked up, clearly sensing the tension. What is it? Lorraine is taking over the house. We need to set some boundaries. Kevin sighed, rubbing his temples. Elena, can't you just try and get along with her? It's hard for her, too. I stared at him in disbelief. Are you kidding me? She's acting like this place is hers. She's just trying to help, he replied weakly. Help? By undermining everything I do? I snapped. Kevin stood up, frustration lining his face. Why do you always have to blow things out of proportion? Rare anger bubbled inside me. Blow things out of proportion? You're seriously siding with her? He threw his hands up. I'm not taking sides, I just want some peace. Furious, I stormed out to the backyard. My home felt like a stranger's house, my voice unheard, my feelings disregarded. But I knew deep down this wasn't living. As the night fell, I steeled myself. This wouldn't be swept under the rug. Something had to change, and I would make sure of it. Kevin's passive nature had pushed me to the edge, but I wouldn't fall off. Not yet. Not without a fight. The days blurred into a nightmare. I barely recognized my own house. Lorraine's presence was overpowering. She critiqued everything I did, from how I cooked to how I decorated. Kevin stayed silent through it all, brushing off my concerns like dust on a shelf. One morning, as I sipped my coffee, Lorraine strutted into the kitchen. Elena, I noticed you've been spending a lot on groceries. Maybe you should cut back a bit. I stared at her, biting my tongue until it nearly bled. Lorraine, we buy what we need. She smirked, shaking her head. I'd manage this household differently, but I guess it's your call. Just as I opened my mouth to retort, Kevin walked in. I turned to him. Kevin, do you hear this? He looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Mom's just trying to help. I slammed my cup down, coffee spilling. Trying to help by undermining me? Kevin sighed, the lines on his face deepening. Why do you always have to make a scene? Lorraine's eyes twinkled with satisfaction. She had him wrapped around her finger. Frustrated, I stormed out of the kitchen. The next day, while I was at work, I got a text from Kevin. We need to talk tonight. Anxiety gnawed at me. When I got home, Lorraine's smug glance followed me as I walked into the living room. Kevin was sitting there, looking stern. Elena, Mom needs money. I've already given her some, but she needs more. My jaw dropped. She needs more. We have bills, Kevin. He rubbed his forehead. I know, but she's family. She's in a tough spot. I turned to Lorraine, who was lounging on the couch, looking unbothered. Can't she find a job or? Lorraine cut me off. I've done my fair share of work. It's time for my son to take care of me. My patience snapped. Kevin, this is not right or fair. You're putting our future at risk. Kevin's face turned red. She's my mother, Elena. She comes first. Tears stung my eyes as I realized where his loyalty lay. What about us, Kevin? What about our life? He stood up, clenching his fists. Maybe you should think about being more supportive. I left the living room, heart pounding with anger and betrayal. The conversation kept replaying in my mind. Kevin's unwavering support for Lorraine and his blatant disregard for our needs. Sandra called that evening. How are you holding up? Not well, I admitted. Lorraine wants money now, and Kevin's ready to give it to her. Sandra's voice brimmed with outrage. That's insane. You need to put your foot down, Elena. It's not that easy, I sighed. He won't listen to me. Then make him listen. You can't keep sacrificing your happiness. Her words echoed in my mind long after we hung up. The next morning I confronted Kevin again. We need to talk about finances. This has to stop. Kevin rolled his eyes. We'll be fine. Desperation gripped me. Kevin, you're jeopardizing everything we've worked for. He shrugged. She's family. You're the one being unreasonable. Anger surged through me. This is my home too. I will not be pushed aside. Walking away from that conversation, I knew things had to change. I couldn't let Lorraine dictate our lives. And if Kevin refused to stand by me, I'd find a way to reclaim my power, no matter the cost. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight for what was rightfully ours. The escalation had only just begun. I came home late from work one evening, hoping for some semblance of peace. Instead, I walked into Lorraine and Kevin in the middle of a heated discussion. It's not done right, Kevin, Lorraine was saying. Elena doesn't know how to manage this house properly. Kevin looked up as I entered, his expression shifting from annoyance to exasperation. Mom thinks the house isn't clean enough, he said, as if that were the biggest problem we had. Lorraine turned to me, hands on her hips. Elena, couldn't you at least try to keep this place decent? I dropped my bag on the floor, barely containing my fury. I have a full-time job, Lorraine. I can't spend every minute cleaning. Lorraine huffed. When I was your age, I managed just fine. That was the last straw. This isn't about cleaning. You just want to control everything. Kevin stepped between us, his voice rising. Elena, calm down. Mom's just trying to help. Help? By criticizing everything I do? This is my home, Kevin. Our home. Lorraine scoffed. You're overreacting. Maybe if you learned some respect. Before she could finish, I cut her off. Respect? You moved in unannounced, rearranged my kitchen, demanded money, and now you're criticizing how I maintain my home. How is that respectful? Kevin's face turned red with frustration. Elena, why can't you see that she's just looking out for us? I could have screamed from the hopelessness of it all. Looking out for us? She's making me feel like a guest in my own house. Lorraine threw her hands in the air. If you're that unhappy, maybe you should leave. I stared at her, stunned. Turning to Kevin, I waited for him to defend me, but he remained silent. My heart sank. Is that what you want too, Kevin? For me to leave? He avoided my gaze, his silence louder than any words. Tears threatened, but I held them back. Fine, if you want me to leave, just say it. Kevin finally spoke, but his words hit like a brick. Maybe you need to learn some respect for family. or leave if you can't handle basic family expectations. The air was thick with tension as I turned on my heel and stormed out of the house. I needed space, air, anything but the walls that felt like they were closing in on me. Sandra's comforting voice was the only thing that made sense as I paced outside, phone pressed to my ear. "He actually said that?" she gasped. "Yes, basically told me to leave," I whispered, the hurt palpable. "Elena, you deserve better than this. If he won't see that, then maybe it's time to rethink things." Her words rang true, but they also scared me. Could I really walk away from 10 years with Kevin, from the home we built? When I finally came back inside, Kevin and Lorraine's voices could still be heard, low and conspiratorial. They didn't notice me slip upstairs, my mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. I knew I couldn't go on like this. Kevin's spinelessness and Lorraine's incessant meddling were driving me to the edge. Sleep didn't come easily that night, but as exhaustion finally took over, one thing was clear. I needed to stand up for myself. I couldn't let them trample over my life without consequence. The battle wasn't just Lorraine's intrusion, it was about reclaiming my own dignity and worth. Morning broke with a sense of grim determination. I had a conference trip coming up, and it felt like the last chance to find some perspective. Kevin was already at the kitchen table when I came downstairs. "We need to talk," he said, as if last night hadn't been a breaking point. "Not now, Kevin. I've got a plane to catch," I said, moving past him. He grabbed my arm gently. "We'll work this out, I promise." I looked at him, searching for sincerity. "We'll see about that." As I left the house, the weight of the impending decisions hung heavy, but I knew one thing for sure: change was coming, one way or another. The conference trip was a welcome escape. For a few days I immersed myself in work, trying to forget about the chaos at home. But as soon as I landed back at the airport, reality crashed back in. I got a text from Kevin. "We need to talk when you get home." Dread settled in my stomach as I walked through the door. Lorraine was in the kitchen, moving pots and pans around as if she could further assert her control over our space. "Welcome back," Lorraine said with a smirk. "Did you enjoy your trip?" "Spare me," I muttered, too tired to engage. Kevin was pacing in the living room. When he saw me, he stopped. "We need to talk now, Elena." I dropped my bags. "Fine, talk." He glanced uneasily at Lorraine before speaking. "Mom and I have been discussing our situation. We think you need to make some changes." "Changes?" I crossed my arms, ready for the next blow. Lorraine interjected. "You need to learn to respect family, and clearly, you're struggling with that." I felt like I was being gaslit. Respect goes both ways, Lorraine. You've done nothing but disrespect me since you got here." Kevin stepped in defensively. "Mom's just trying to help us make this work." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Kevin, are you even listening to yourself? She's tearing us apart." Lorraine put on her most innocent face. "Oh, please, you're just blowing things out of proportion," I snapped. "You're manipulating Kevin and trying to control our lives. What exactly is your endgame here?" Kevin's face turned pale. "Elena, stop. We're supposed to be a family. A family that respects each other," I shot back. "And right now I feel like I've been completely disrespected and disregarded." Kevin's face contorted with frustration. "Maybe you need to spend some time away to clear your head." I was stunned. "Do you even hear what you're saying? You want me to leave my own home?" Lorraine smirked, clearly enjoying the show. "Maybe a little time apart would do you both some good." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Kevin broke it. "Maybe she's right. I think it's best if you take some time to cool off." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of betrayal. If I leave, I'm not coming back until things change. Kevin looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "Do what you need to do, Elena." I turned, grabbing my bags, and walked out the door. It wasn't until I was outside that the tears came. As heart-wrenching as it was also liberating. For too long I had tolerated being second to Lorraine's manipulations. Sandra was at her door before I even rang the bell. "Elena, what's happened now?" "Kevin wants me to leave," I managed between sobs. He sided with Lorraine again. Sandra pulled me into a comforting hug. "You've done the right thing. You deserve better." As days turned into a week, I settled into Sandra's spare bedroom. The sting of Kevin's betrayal was sharp, but the time away also gave me clarity. I began consulting with Mark, a trusted lawyer, discussing my options. During one of our meetings, Mark looked up from his papers. "You know, Elena, the house is legally yours." I blinked, processing his words. "What do you mean?" "Kevin never updated the deed after you purchased it. Legally, you hold the title." A spark of hope flickered. "So I could." "Yes," Mark confirmed. "You have the power here. Use it wisely." Armed with this knowledge, I prepared for the next battle. Kevin and Lorraine needed a wake-up call, and I was more than ready to give it to them. My time of feeling powerless was over. It was time to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I returned home with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. As I walked through the front door, the silence struck me. It was clear Lorraine and Kevin knew something was up. I found them both in the living room, Kevin on the couch, Lorraine in the armchair. Both turned to face me as I entered. Kevin spoke first, his voice betraying his nervousness. "Elena, where have you been?" I didn't waste any time. "Kevin, Lorraine, sit down. We need to talk." Lorraine's eyes narrowed. "About what? Think you can come in here and start making demands?" I ignored her, focusing on Kevin. "This ends now, Kevin. Lorraine's constant meddling, the financial drain, everything." Kevin's brows furrowed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this situation is unbearable. Lorraine's presence and your constant support of her over our marriage is unacceptable." Lorraine stood up, her face a mask of feigned innocence. "Oh, I see. So now it's all my fault?" "Every part of it," I stated bluntly. "I've tried to be reasonable, but you've taken over our home, criticized me constantly, and pushed me to the breaking point." Kevin sighed deeply. "Elena, we've been over this. She's family." I took a deep breath. "Well, here's the thing, Kevin. The house is in my name. Legally, I own this place." Both Kevin and Lorraine froze, their faces pale. "What?" Kevin muttered, disbelief painting his features. "You heard me, and with that, I have the final say on who stays and who goes." Lorraine scoffed, trying to regain her composure. "You wouldn't dare." I looked straight at Kevin. "If you want to stay in this marriage, Lorraine needs to go. Now." Kevin stammered. "Elena, you can't just—" "Yes, I can," I interrupted. "This is my home, and I'm done being pushed around." Lorraine's eyes were on fire. "You ungrateful little—" "Enough!" I shouted. "Leave, now!" Kevin stood up, trying to placate. "Elena, can't we discuss this?" "No, Kevin. I have tried to discuss, to compromise, but you both have taken advantage of my patience." He glanced at his mother, despair clouding his eyes. "Mom, maybe it's best if you find somewhere else to stay for a while." Lorraine's face twisted in rage. "What, you're kicking me out?" Kevin looked down, avoiding her gaze. "Maybe just for a little while, until things calm down." She turned to me, venom in her voice. "You'll regret this." I met her look with defiance. "No, Lorraine, I think this is exactly what I need to do." Kevin's shoulders slumped as Lorraine stormed off to pack her things. He finally looked at me, desperation in his eyes. "Elena, I cut him off. Kevin, I love you, but your blind allegiance to your mother has pushed us to this breaking point. Things need to change, or we're over." Lorraine brushed past us with her bags, shooting daggers with her eyes. "This isn't the end, Elena. Remember that." I didn't flinch. "Goodbye, Lorraine." After she slammed the door, the house fell into an eerie silence. Kevin and I stood there, the distance between us growing. This wasn't going to be fixed overnight. If Kevin couldn't adjust, I knew I'd have to walk away for good. For now, though, a heavy weight lifted from my shoulders. The battle wasn't completely won, but the most reinforcing battle had been, and I felt stronger for it. The next steps were uncertain, but I was ready to face them head-on. Kevin was unusually quiet in the days following Lorraine's departure. Tension hung in the air like a storm about to break. His silence was heavy, his movements slow, and it was clear he was struggling to process everything. One evening, while we were having dinner, he finally spoke up. "Elena, I never wanted it to get this bad." I looked at him, wanting to believe there was genuine regret. "Kevin, it's not just about wanting or not wanting. It's about actions and consequences. You've allowed your mother to disrespect me for years." He sighed, pushing his food around on his plate. "I know, but I didn't know how to stop her." "By standing up to her, Kevin. By putting our marriage first," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "You're right," he admitted, sadly. "I've been a coward." The admission felt like a small victory, but I wasn't about to let him off easy. "Kevin, I need you to understand that things have to change. If they don't, we won't survive this." He looked up, his eyes pleading. "I'll do whatever it takes, Elena. Just tell me what to do." I took a deep breath. "We need professional help, counseling, and you need to rebuild the trust that's been shattered." Kevin nodded, slowly. "I'll make an appointment tomorrow." The next few days were filled with cold, practical coexistence. We barely spoke outside of necessity. I needed space to heal, and Kevin seemed to need time to regain his footing. Then, another bombshell hit. Lorraine started calling, leaving messages. Kevin ignored them at first, but one evening he played them all at once, his face pale. Lorraine's voice was shrill and desperate. "Kevin, I need you to come here. Things are bad. I don't know what to do." Kevin turned to me, eyes wide with helplessness. "She's in trouble, Elena?" I crossed my arms, feeling my resolve harden. "She's been in trouble of her own making. She dug this hole, Kevin." "I know, but she's still my mother," he said, his voice shaking. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar sting of frustration. "If you go to her now, Kevin, you're undoing any progress we've made." He froze, torn between guilt and duty. "But if I don't go, what kind of son am I?" "One who finally sets boundaries. One who respects his wife," I replied. Kevin's shoulders drooped. "What do you want me to do?" "This is a test for you, Kevin. You need to choose us. If you don't, I'll know where we stand," I said, each word a heavy verdict. Kevin slowly nodded. "All right, I won't go." The next day I consulted Mark again, finalizing some practical matters regarding the house. When I returned home, Kevin was waiting. "I didn't respond to her," he said quietly, "just like you asked." A small part of me felt relief. "That's a start, Kevin. And I made an appointment with the counselor for both of us," he added. I nodded, feeling cautiously optimistic. "Good. We need this." Later, as we sat silently in the living room, Kevin finally broke the quiet. "I regret everything, Elena. Letting her come between us was the worst mistake of my life." I looked at him, sensing some genuine change. "This is your chance to prove it." He reached out, taking my hand. "I promise, Elena, I'll do better." As the days turned into weeks, we attended counseling sessions, slowly working through years of built-up resentment and betrayal. It wasn't easy, and I wasn't sure if Kevin and I would fully recover, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lorraine wasn't done with her schemes, and I remained vigilant, ready for whatever her next move would be. This battle wasn't over, but I was no longer willing to be a passive participant in my own life. I was prepared to fight for my happiness, no matter the cost. The decision to move out temporarily was my last resort. Kevin and I had made progress in counseling, but I needed a fresh start to clear my mind and regain control. I found a small, furnished apartment a few blocks away, allowing me to maintain some distance while still keeping an eye on the home front. The day I left, Kevin looked distraught. "Elena, I understand why you need to do this, but it feels so final." "It's not forever, Kevin. It's just for now," I said, mustering as much reassurance as I could. "I need space to heal." He nodded, but his eyes were filled with worry. "I'll be here when you're ready." As I settled into my new place, I threw myself into work, excelling at the marketing firm and networking with new clients. One evening, I received a call from Nathan Parker, an old friend who had just launched a startup. "Elena, I've been following your career for a while now. I'd love for you to join my team," he said enthusiastically. Excitement bubbled up. "That sounds amazing, Nathan. Let's meet and discuss it further." Meanwhile, Lorraine's life was unraveling. Rumors reached me through mutual acquaintances. She and Kevin had been forced to move into a rundown apartment, their finances in tatters without my contributions. It seemed karma was catching up to her. Several weeks passed before Kevin called. "Elena, can we meet? I need to talk to you." We met at a small cafe. Kevin looked worn out but sincere. "I've missed you. The house feels empty without you." "I've missed you too," I admitted, though cautiously. "But have things changed?" He sighed deeply. "Lorraine's in over her head. She's been manipulating me for so long, and I finally see it. I've made arrangements for her to move in with a relative out of state." I raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yes," he confirmed. "I want to make things right, Elena. I want us to be happy again." A part of me felt relief, but I also knew I had to protect my heart. "Kevin, it'll take time for me to believe things have truly changed." He nodded, understandingly. "I'm willing to wait." As I walked back to my apartment, I mulled over our conversation. Was it possible Kevin had really changed? Only time would tell. The next day, I met with Nathan. The startup's energy was infectious, and I accepted his offer to join the team as their head of marketing. It was a fresh, exciting challenge and a chance to build something new. Months flew by. Work was fulfilling, and Kevin and I maintained cautious communication. Finally, one afternoon, I received the news I'd been expecting. Lorraine had moved out of state. Kevin called me later, his voice hopeful. "The house is ours again, Elena? Can we start over?" I hesitated a moment before answering. "Yes, Kevin. We can give it another try." Moving back into the house felt surreal. It was as if a dark cloud had lifted, and the space was filled with possibilities once more. Kevin worked hard to rebuild trust, and the counseling sessions became a solid foundation for our new beginning. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Kevin turned to me. "Thank you for giving us another chance, Elena. I won't let you down." Looking at him, I saw a genuine change and commitment in his eyes. "I believe you, Kevin. Let's make the most of this." Life gradually became stable and fulfilling again. My career at Nathan's startup soared, and Kevin and I rediscovered our love and partnership. Lorraine's absence was a blessing that allowed us to focus on us without the constant undercurrent of manipulation. Occasionally, I'd hear whispers about Lorraine struggling in her new living situation. She had burned many bridges and found herself isolated and vulnerable. It may have been karma's way of balancing the scales. As time went on, Kevin and I thrived, stronger and more resilient than ever. The journey had been long and painful, but the light at the end was worth the battle. Now our lives felt rooted in mutual respect and genuine love, standing tall amidst the trials we'd conquered together.